You are not to bribe your child with tomorrow's food that they will love to get them to eat today's food. Okay, so pancakes, if that is part of your breakfast routine, then you're still going to make pancakes and you're going to feed them pancakes in the morning. But whether or not your child eats pancakes is not dependent on their 2 bites of broccoli today. Hey guys, welcome back to the last episode of this season of the MOMables Podcast. As you know, we have focused on picky eating this podcast season, and we've gone in depth to talk about the problem of picky eating, how can you introduce new foods, texture issues, color issues. So if you're just getting here, this is a really great episode to end with a bang, because I know that you're going to resonate with the story that I'm about to share with you. Now, if you need to catch up, make sure you check on the show notes or the links right below this video for you to check out all the other topics. But this season of podcasts is brought to you by Happier Plates. Happier Plates is our digital program that helps parents transform their mealtimes and establish healthy eating habits in their kids. It is a step-by-step masterclass to empower parents to help their picky and selective eaters try new foods. I have more information for you in the show notes and in the description right below this video. As mentioned, today's episode is a really special one because I printed out Andrea's email and I have it here with me. I'm going to read it to you. And then after I read it to you, I'm going to explain to you what went wrong in that situation. And I'm only able to realize these things that went wrong because I myself sought out help to establish better eating habits in my house for many years. And then I'm going to explain to you how that scenario should play out, which basically says, after you listen to this podcast, you can change your behavior, how things go at your house, and immediately transform your meal times one day at a time. So this is how it went. This is from Andrea. This was Laura. This was my experience today. I ended up winning, but I felt like we lost as a family. I gave my son 2 small broccoli bites covered in cheese. He was told to eat them. The rest of the family finished eating, and then this happened. My son screaming, "I will not eat that!" Me, "You will not eat anything else until you eat those 2 bites." My son, "I will not eat that!" Me, "Okay, I'm making pancakes in the morning." That's his favorite. "You can't have any unless you eat those 2 bites." My son, "I will eat at school." My daughter whispers in my ear, "It's true, Mom. They will make him eat." I wink at my daughter. Me, "I will go buy your favorite fast food and come have lunch with you. I will also bring these 2 bites of broccoli with me. You can either eat them and enjoy your lunch or not and go on to your next class without food." I turn to leave and go out on the patio. Son, "You're starving me." I turn around and say, "No, starving is depriving you of food. I have provided you with cheese-covered broccoli. You are starving yourself." I walk outside and I hear lots of yelling inside. I put the TV on. And about 15 minutes later, my son opens the door to the patio, shows me the empty plate, and says, "I want Chick-fil-A." Turns around and closes the door. I win, but I feel awful. So I printed out this email from Andrea because I got goosebumps when I read it. I still got goosebumps now reading it because this is Andrea, but it could have been me. Maybe it's you. It may not be those words, but they're similar tones. And I know that it's a lot of yelling going on because she particularly made sure to write this in a dialogue form and in very bold and capital letters. So one of the reasons it touched me as a mom is because I could see myself, and I just remember how frustrated I felt at the time when these things would happen at our dinner table night after night. So what I want to do is reread the dialogue and then interject and say what was wrong with that part, as if just the same way that I would explain what happened last night at dinner to our therapist, I'm going to really read this dialogue because this was my dialogue for many years. So first of all, she starts out by saying, I gave my son 2 small broccoli bites covered in cheese. He was told to eat them. The rest of the family finished eating, and then this happened. I don't know, obviously, how it was told to eat the broccoli or how she fed him, or, and I don't know the age here, but I assume by this conversation that the child can carry on a conversation. So some of the things that you've heard me talk about in this podcast is the importance of allowing our kids to serve themselves. And what's happened, and a lot of the problems in this conversation are because the child is trying to establish a power play in this scenario. So instead of being told to eat a food, what are we going to do when somebody tells us what to do? We completely try to do the opposite. Some of the things we've talked about in the previous podcast is to serve the food and allow the child to serve themselves. That's a step. Or also select the foods that you have. Now, I think cheese-covered broccoli is way better than steamed broccoli, but again, nobody wants to be told what to eat. Now, we start out with the son screaming, I will not eat that. Number one, that is not a behavior that should be tolerated at the table because it's not tolerated for our kids to yell at other adults in a position of power, whether it's an adult or a teacher in their lives. So allowing our kids to talk that way, I know this is a fight that's happening at the table, but it is also should not be allowed. So a conversation about tantrum, and listen, I'm a mom, I've got 3 kids. My kids have thrown tantrums when they were younger. But this yelling is not a tantrum because they want something or they're tired, or you're dragging your kid to the grocery store and, an hour and a half later you're at the checkout line and they see the candy. That's a tantrum. This is fighting and power play. So your job is to explain the behavior way before that and remind them of what's tolerated and not. And I'm going to tell you exactly how that's done in our next section. So then the mom replied, you will not eat anything else until you eat those 2 small bites. Something that we talk about in Happier Plates is how we do not establish, and we've talked about this also in previous podcasts, that we are not to establish 1-bite rules or make our kids eat or try something before they can have something else, because what do we do when somebody puts rules in front of us? We try to figure out how to break them, or we want to play up what we have just been told we can and cannot do. And our kids, all they are doing is fighting for power. They're not fighting about the broccoli. The broccoli is the vessel that they're using to get our attention and to get our power in a conversation. So again, there's no need to remind them about the 2 bites that they're supposed to be taking. The son says, again, yelling, I will not eat that. So then she replies, okay, I'm making pancakes in the morning. That's his favorite. Something we'll really cover in depth in our Happier Place is how to not reward what's coming tomorrow based on today's meal. So I'm going to show you an example of how this is played out. But essentially, you are not to bribe your child with tomorrow's food that they will love to get them to eat today's food. Okay, so pancakes, if that is part of your breakfast routine, then you're still going to make pancakes and you're going to feed them pancakes in the morning. But whether or not your child eats pancakes is not dependent on their 2 bites of broccoli today. She says, you can't have any pancakes unless you eat those 2 bites. That right there is like daring your kid. If you put your toe in the pool, you're not swimming today. What's your kid gonna do? They're gonna test the water, and they're gonna like put their foot really slowly in the pool and see how far they can get before you like go get up from your chair and drag them away. They're really, what's happening here is they're just testing you. And yes, so tomorrow you're gonna make pancakes regardless, because right now you're focusing on the meal today, not tomorrow's breakfast. So then your child is already, their mindset's already in tomorrow. And they're telling you, the kid went on and said, I will eat at school, yelling. Now, we already talked about in a previous podcast how kids will eat at school, surrounded by their friends, surrounded by their teachers, because they follow the rules their rules, yes, but they follow the expectation that is set somewhere else because there is no pressure to eat there. A teacher is not sitting, hovering over their shoulder, yelling at them, having this power play. They know, kids just know, I'm here, this is what's expected, this is what I have to do. And the daughter reminded her, it's true, Mom, they will make him eat. But again, they're not making her child eat by spoon feeding the food or by forcing them. They will make him eat because he knows that's what's expected there. And if not, maybe he doesn't get to go play, or they have different consequences based on what is happening at school. And so therefore he then behaves how is expected. So then she continues on to tell him, I will go buy your favorite fast food and come have lunch with you. Now, she used what's something really special, which is going to eat your kid's lunch, going to eat lunch with your kid at school as a bribing mechanism for today's behavior. And quite frankly, this is exactly what the kid wants. Kids are using this power struggle to get us to give them our love, our attention, to make them feel special. Unfortunately, at the table, it often is triggered by foods they don't want to eat. But in the end, this is exactly what a kid wants. It's like for their parent to come with fast food, which is such a treat, and to sit to be the special kid whose mom brings it and hang out with them. So this should not have gone this far, and never use something that's really special as a reward for bad behavior. So she continues on to say, I will also bring these 2 bites of broccoli with me. So basically, hey, yeah, we get to do something really special, but I'm still in charge here. This is exactly what it is. This is reminding the kid, I'm in charge. And not only am I going to do something special, but just so in case you don't forget, I'm still in charge and I'm bringing this broccoli that you refuse to eat today. And then she says, you can either eat them and enjoy your lunch or not and go to your next class without food. So I want you to, while this conversation doesn't seem really difficult, I do want you to imagine the psychological responses in situations this is putting your child in. Number one, you're going to a public place where your kid is around their friends, and you just took a really special situation, which is bringing Chick-fil-A or a fast food to school and making them special, and now you ridicule them. You shame them into not getting that special food because they won't eat those 2 bites of broccoli. So if you want to go to school and bring your child their favorite fast food, that's awesome. But that is a treat for good behavior of, hey, you know what? Everything went really smoothly this week. At dinner, everybody cleared their plates. We didn't fight at the table. And you know what? I had more time. So I think this week, because I had more time, I'm going to go bring you lunch. So it's a time issue, right? So if now you're not spending an hour negotiating with your kid, you have an extra hour to do laundry, to do all the things that you wanted to do. And then that time is spent on doing something special with your child. At this point, I'm pretty sure that the mom was so frustrated that she gets up. I know because I have been there and gotten up from the table and removed myself to further blow up and just lose it at the dinner table. So in order to basically as an act of self-preservation, losing my cool at the table, I have just exited out because I'm the one that's frustrated and ready to act in a way that's just not adult-like. So at a last attempt to win, the child yells, "You're starving me," which the words he used is exactly what we parents don't want to hear. We don't want to hear that we're starving our child because they know that we're trying to get them to eat broccoli for the nutrition. Okay, they know that we make an effort to feed our families because I'm pretty sure that we've said it like, hey, this is nutritious. This has a lot of vitamins. This has whatever it is, the dialogue that happens at your house, it has happened and they know. So him using the words, "you're starving me," is a direct attempt to hurt and threaten the parenting positioning of like providing something that's nutritious. And then she turns around and continues to engage in this power play, while I'm sure nicely and calmly, to explain, no, starving is depriving you of food. I've provided you with cheese-covered broccoli. You're starving yourself. It's not about this is super nice, and it's not the words that she used, but it's continuing to engage in that power play as in like, no, you're not right. I'm right. This is what the child is hearing in their head. I'm right. You're not. So she exits, rightly, fully so, at this time in her mind. And then the kid eats the plate and shows it to her as in proving his point. I want Chick-fil-A. And then leaves. What he just did is, you know what? I won. Take that. Check. 1 point for me, 0 for mom. And had it been left like that, I could totally understand this power struggle. Why I could see myself is because she signed off saying, I win, but I feel awful. Every parent has felt awful at some point because of this power struggle that we have engaged our kids in. But the sad part is that no, she didn't win. He won. In her mind, she won because he ate the broccoli. But the entire power struggle here, everything that happened was not about the broccoli. The entire thing was about the kid trying to establish his power, his authority at the table. And that is exactly what he did. He might have been 7, 8, I don't know, 10, and he won. So what I want you to understand is that everything that happens at the table is really often directed in the cause of fighting for who's right? At the end of the day, you are the parent, you're the adult, you're the one that establishes the rules for your home. Everyone that lives there follows your lead, right? They know where to push your buttons because you have shown them where your buttons are. They know what they can get away with because they've tested it and so forth. So in order to change what's happening at the dinner table, we can't change them. We have to change ourselves so that the power struggle is gone and that it's think of it as like a classroom. Your home is like the classroom. From day one, the teacher is to establish the authority, establish what's tolerated, and establish the consequences of what happens. And teachers, they follow through, right? Every single time, they'll call out a child. They'll say, hey, that's not okay. Hey, put this away. They're correcting our kids all day long so that it's not a behavior that spreads in the classroom. A lot of parents often ask me, I only have one child that's really picky, and it's now I have a younger sibling who's seen what's happening at the dinner table, and I don't know how to stop it. So if you just take a step back and go, what is it that I need to change about myself? Because that is the one thing you can control, so that the ripple effect of that demonstrates what can happen and how everybody should behave at the table is just like establishing a classroom. So I want you to, I injected the responses that you're like, okay, that's great, Laura, but what do I do when this happens at my house? So I'm going to tell you exactly what to say and what to do. The son is screaming, I will not eat that, right? This is the first time after you told them to eat the broccoli. Everybody else was finished, right? The opening. So when your child screams at you, this is their first attempt to power play. So I'm going to read this through and show you exactly what to say word for word. The son screaming, I will not eat that. Me. You cannot talk to me like that. You don't speak to your teacher like that. So speaking to me like that is hurtful. You need to compare this to something that they can relate to, and they would never talk to their teacher like that. So again, speaking to me like that is not allowed, is what you're saying. The son, I will not eat that. Again, your job is to reel it back and go, well then, there are other things at the table to eat, and I'm sure you can enjoy one of them. Today may not be your favorite meal, but tomorrow I have pancakes planned, and you'll love those. The son, I will eat at school. Again, this is where the daughter whispers in the ear, it's true, Mom, they'll make him eat. And then she winked at the daughter. So then she would pause and look at the child and say, waiting until tomorrow is a long time. I would consider eating something that's offered to you today. And yes, you can most definitely eat with your friends at school tomorrow. This entire conversation has probably at this point just been the mom nipping these attempts to fight with her over the broccoli, which really isn't about the broccoli. So the next thing that happened is the son saying, you're starving me, right? After 3 attempts and nipping the conversation and reeling it back to what's happening right here, right now, normally a child would not keep pushing. But if at this point, if you've nipped all the previous power plays, it's probably not going to get this far, but you're starving me may not come out. But if your child is really persistent, then you would answer to the starving question. I'm sorry that you're hungry, but you are welcome to eat anything that's at the table. You're not. Now, you just showed them what's offered at the table, or maybe it's in the kitchen because you didn't bring everything out. But you're reeling it back to today, right now. I'm not starving you. Look at the food. It's quite obvious. The entire time is you have been avoiding addressing the yelling, the negotiating, the rules, and calming the tone down to what is happening, and you staying calm, cool, and collecting to establish your authority. A leader doesn't yell back, and I'm quite sure while she didn't put the dialogue her dialogue in caps lock, I know that I would have yelled quite a few times in the past. So I can only assume that there was a bit of back and forth. But again, you are the leader of your family at the table in that moment. So leaders keep their calm, cool, and collected, just like a teacher would in a classroom. So no matter how upset you are at this point, this entire time you've been nipping this power play. So at this point, you should not be feeling that you're all bottled up inside and you're going to burst out. Like, you shouldn't have to remove yourself from the table, right? In the previous scenario, in the real life scenario, what happened is that as a parent, you probably were yelling back and forth with your kid, negotiating, and out of frustration, you removed yourself from the situation. Now, if you feel like you're going to burst inside, then you are to remove the child from the table, since that is exactly what a teacher would have done in the classroom. The teacher never leaves the room and leaves the classroom or her focus and attention, which is the other kids or the other members of the family at the table, alone when a child is disrupting. The teachers, they remove the child from the classroom and they have a one-on-one talk outside or in the hallway about the behavior. So the talk that happens is outside, removing them on the table. Maybe it's like, hey, you know what? This is not okay to have this conversation at the table, to speak to me like that. Let's get up and go to the living room, or let's go to your room and talk about this. So once you are there, that's like what you're going to do is pluck them out, let everybody else, because at this point, I can tell you from experience that your spouse is upset about the situation, how it's escalated. The other kids are, if you have other kids at the table, they're observing how you are losing this battle, right? And they're learning what's accepted and tolerated. So by getting up, removing the child into their bedroom to have a one-on-one talk, you are meeting your child where they are at and behaving exactly how they know or they're already experiencing every day at school. And at that point, you're going to talk about the behavior of yelling and disrupting and being disrespectful. This conversation is not about the broccoli. The broccoli is a byproduct. It is the tool being used to establish that power play. So you always talk about the behavior, not the food. And this, my friend, is exactly how you win. It's not by getting your child to take a bite. That's not winning. Winning is establishing your authority over what you tolerate and how you want them to behave at the table, and creating a good environment for that child and for the other family members at the table. That's how you win at home and at the table. Now, if you like this and you found this podcast helpful, I highly recommend that you check out our Happier Plates masterclass. I'm going to be linking it right below this video. I teach you everything that is related to all the previous episodes we just talked about. And essentially, I want to equip you to be able to handle the table and our picky eaters with the dignity and respect that you deserve as a parent, of how to behave the right way. I felt like for me, it was a crash course, a 7-year crash course, but it was a crash course on parenting. I still have my bad days, but those are going to come. But I can tell you that as that child has grown older, and my next child has gone through their picky eating stage, I am a much better parent at dinner time, and I'm a much better equipped to handle this type of situations. And at the end of the day, I'm the one that can change. So if you have comments, make sure you leave them below the video. Send me an email, hit reply to this podcast, or leave a comment on iTunes sharing how this helped you at your meals. And of course, make sure to check out Happier Plates on MOMables.com.